Good evening. This is a call to order for the October 13th, 2025 City of Canal, Winchester Planning and Zoning meeting. Mr. Deeds, roll call, please.
Mr. Donahue.
Here.
Ms. Gooden.
Here.
Mr. Paulsgrove.
Here.
Okay, and Mr. Deeds here. Motion to excuse Ms. McDonald, Mr. Ritchie, and Mr. Woldenthaler.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Donahue.
Yes.
Ms. Gooden.
Yes.
Mr. Paulsgrove.
Yes.
Mr. Deeds, yes.
Thank you. So there are 4 members of the commission present tonight. So per city statute, there would need to be 4 positive votes for a motion to carry. So if we vote and it goes 3-2, or I'm sorry, 3-1, that motion would not carry and it would fail. So I would like all the applicants and members of the public to understand that before, and we can discuss that when we reach your motion this evening. Or I'm sorry, your application this evening. Now I'll need approval of minutes for the September meeting for 2025, please.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Deeds, second by Mr. Paulsgrove. Roll call.
Mr. Donahue.
Yes.
Ms. Gooden.
Yes.
Mr. Paulsgrove.
Yes.
And Mr. Deeds, yes.
All right, so now it's time for public comment for any items that are not on our agenda this evening. So if there's any members of the public here to speak to any items not on the agenda, now would be the time. All right. If you'll be speaking with us this evening, could you please stand if you're able and take an oath? If there's any chance you'll talk to the commission. Thank you. Do you swear to be truthful in the testimony you give and tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth? If so, please say I do.
I do.
Thank you. I will now turn it over to staff for our first application this evening.
The first item on tonight's agenda is VA 25-012. This is a variance for the Canal Winchester High School from Chapter 1157.04B2 to exceed the maximum building height permitted. The subject property is a mix of zoning between R3 residential and PUD. The portion of the property that is requesting the variance is the high school building there in the R3 section of the property. All surrounding properties to this subject property are single-family zoning districts of various types and contain single-family homes. The applicant this evening is requesting approval to construct a new 20,500 square foot Performing Arts Center addition on the north side of the Canal Winchester High School. This addition, floor plans up on the screen for review. The Performing Arts Center exceeds the maximum 35-foot building height permitted in the R3 zoning district at 50 feet tall. The applicant notes that 50-foot tall ceiling height is in order to screen the elements associated with the Performing Arts Center, such as the fly scenery, curtains, lighting equipment, and it's all associated with the center stage that's up on the screen. The area of the building that is exceeding the height is approximately this portion of the building here with my cursor. And then here's an aerial overview also showing the portion of the building that's exceeding to the 50-foot in height. In 1991, the Planning and Zoning Commission approved variance VA 91-04 to construct portions of the Canal Winchester High School to be a max of 44 feet tall. The variance was granted for those portions of the building only, not for the entire components of the property, but staff just wanted to note that that was the existing max height for some of the elements on the building to take into account some of the pitched roofs, the 2-story nature of the building. This request for this area, approximately 3,309.3 square feet, is 50 feet tall. When looking at some of these site plans here, again, you can see this is the portion of the building that is at 50 feet tall. The rest of the roof height here is at 40 feet tall. So the entire building itself does need the variance for the height. However, this portion of the building here does exceed the maximum height for any other component on the school building. When looking at the criteria for approval, Staff found that special circumstances and conditions exist that are not applicable to other lands and structures in the same zoning district. The site contains the Canal Winchester High School, which acts as an institutional use, differentiating itself from other residential dwellings in surrounding zoning districts. That the literal interpretation of the zoning code would deprive the applicant to construct a modern performing arts center that has been designed to a nationally recognized theater design standard. The proposed building height to 50 feet is limited for the elevated stage towards equipment associated with it to be screened from the general audience's view. Special circumstances and conditions are warranted for this public school, which is both form and use are different from residential dwellings, and that granting this variance will not conduce any undue privilege. The applicant has noted this variance is specific for this portion of the building and not the entire 41-acre site. Granting of this variance, staff notes should be carefully considered by the Planning and Zoning Commission. The applicant has worked with city staff on the architectural design for the building to ensure it blends into the existing structure and can be screened as much as possible given the proposed building height. When looking at this building here, just some elements that we'll further discuss during the site development plan and final development plan applications. But the building here is made out of a architectural metal panel. Staff has worked with the architect to get that metal panel to be in a brick-laid kind of formation to tie into some of the existing elements on the building. Has asked the applicant to have every element on this aluminum panel system to be all paint matched the same color. Previously the exterior ladders were black, the roof cap was black. It just started to create some more definition to the space. So staff had asked for it to be more kind of seamlessly designed, to have it disappear into the background rather than being a focal point, considering it's the tallest element on the building. Additionally, staff had asked the applicant to plant additional landscaping on the Washington Street side of this facility. These renderings were provided by the applicant to show kind of the main sides of the building, what it would look like. These two on the right-hand side are a view looking north and south on Washington Street. This area that the addition is going onto is in front of the smallest portion of the school building, giving kind of this more definition than if it was located elsewhere on the campus. So staff had asked the applicant to plant some tall, slender trees within that landscape bed. That way, as they mature, they'll start to kind of obscure that building addition. The applicant has incorporated in their landscape plan these 3 slender silhouette sweet gums that mature to 50 to 60 foot in height that will provide proper screening in the future. This is something that's not reflected in the applicant's variance application, but I thought it was important to worth just noting in my staff report for the Planning and Zoning Commission. So staff is recommending that VA 25-012 be approved as presented.
Questions or comments for staff? So I don't see a member from the school administration here this evening, and I believe that the 4 members present this evening will have various questions regarding programming within the site and proposed use of different facilities here. So before we proceed, I would like to discuss with the commission, do we want to proceed with the presentation here this evening for the representative of the school district, or do we want to consider tabling these applications until somebody from the school district is present?
Andrew, do we know if someone was supposed to be here this evening?
That would be a question for the
And
applicant.
we have representatives.
We do.
We have representatives of the school district, but I don't believe we have anybody from the administration here this evening.
Yeah, that'd be a question for the applicants here this evening.
Okay, so we're discussing the variance application at this point for the maximum building height. So if the applicant would like to come forward and respond to our question and anything you would like to add that staff may have not included in this application.
Why don't you guys go first since you're the applicants?
So if you could sign in and please state your name. And if there's anything you wish to add to staff's presentation first.
Glenn Decker of Sands Decker Engineers. At this point, I do not have anything to add.
So,
What's your relationship to the project?
We are the civil site design engineer.
and Mr. Moore, would we be okay voting on this particular application? To, you know, there's just other questions I think that we may have as it relates to the fundamental programming within the site and intended use for some of these facilities that, you know, a member from the school would probably be able to answer more efficiently.
I know they have
The
school board
civil-
meetings on these same nights, so it's difficult for them to attend these meetings. So
I get that.
I believe they're authorized to speak on their behalf, They should be.
I understand, but that's not my question.
Yeah, I think if you guys want to ask the questions to the applicants and see if they can answer the different levels of questions you have, if you feel like they're not being addressed adequately, then you can discuss that with the representatives here this evening. But I would definitely ask them, that way, if nothing else, they're prepared and can let someone from the school board know what questions you guys have.
If we get to a point, I think I know where Mr. Donahue's going. If we don't have the ability to table, correct, we need to ask the applicant if they
You would
wish to
have the
table.
ability to table.
Oh, we can table?
Yeah,
Okay.
you can table. Yeah, Planning and Zoning Commission has the ability to table the meeting, but you would have to vote on the next meeting
Okay.
unless the applicant tables further.
So are there any questions for the applicant related to this agenda or to this application?
Not to the variance.
Before you guys get started, just very quickly, Amadeus Escudero from Shore Architects, or the architects for the project as well, and representing the client. So yes, like Andrew said, any questions about the architecture or about the site in general, absolutely we can answer it. But if there's anything administrative specific, then we can send it over to the administrative team, of course.
Okay. Andrew, can you go back one slide? So I'm sorry, where it shows the elevator, yeah. So the entire addition for the Performing Arts Center is above the maximum height, is that correct?
Not the entire addition. So if you're looking at this screen here, everything that's rendered in color, all this brickwork is part of this Performing Arts Center addition. So is this cream-colored aluminum panel system. That's for the Performing Arts Center. The applicant notes here that this roof height is at 22 feet tall, which does meet our maximum heights. This height over here is not indicated, but just looking at scaling, it looks like it's within that 35-foot height as well. It's this component and above, which is, if I can back up maybe a little or show, would be related to this kind of general box. So this box is the aluminum panel system that exceeds that 40-foot height. It's the area directly above the stage that goes to the max of 50 foot in height.
Okay, thank you.
And there's a box and area the applicant provided showing that area of 50 foot in height.
Okay.
And so part of the request this evening is limiting that max 50 foot to this box in area.
Okay.
If they come back with a later project, does the variance apply to the whole parcel?
Not based on how I had them submit. It only
Okay.
applies to that red box in area for the.
That's what I was hoping would be, okay, correct.
Any other questions for the applicant or for staff?
No.
Okay. So this is a variance, so I'll open it up for public comment if there's anybody here from the public.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Ms. Gooden?
Yes.
Mr. Paulsgrove?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds? Yes.
Okay, so again, there's 4 of us here this evening and 4 positive votes to carry. So I will ask every applicant the same question. Do you want to vote this evening, or do you want to table for a full commission? And I will say for this particular application, I have no issue with the variance. I will have additional questions in the site development plan, the final development plan, and I do support this project, but I don't know that we've got the cards in place this evening to make a proper vote and a proper decision from my perspective, not having a representative from the school district here. So I wanted to say that before we ask to vote.
I'll say, I think it's only slightly higher than the last variance that was provided. Given where it's positioned, I think it's well positioned, so it's kind of hidden in the middle of so the actual height of it doesn't be different if we're sitting next to a single-story home, like 5 or 10 feet away. So it's pretty well isolated. So.
Okay.
But I agree. I think what we'll do is maybe go through, and as we approach each topic, we'll see how we go.
Yep.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion that we approve variance VA-25-012.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Deeds, second by Ms. Gooden. Any further discussion? Okay, roll call.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Ms. Gooden?
Yes.
Mr. Paulsgrove?
Yes.
And Mr. Deeds, yes.
So variance 25012 has been approved.
These next 2 applications for the high school project, I'm going to discuss them in sequence, and we will have 2 separate votes for them, as they are each different zoning districts have different criteria for application processes. But to help streamline the conversation a little bit here this evening, we'll be discussing them both at the same time. The first is site development plan 25008. This site development plan is to approve a 20,500 square foot performing arts center addition onto the high school, along with a reconfiguration of the sports fields and site access. FDP 25-004, which pertains to the PUD zoning of this area in green to the south, is to approve a new 20,100 square foot field house adjacent to the football stadium, along with a reconfiguration of the sports fields and general site access. So for visual purposes here, taking away the colors from zoning, this dashed line shows the separation between the 2 applications. So site development plan 25008, I'll start talking about first, and then move into the final development plan component for the field house to the south, and then kind of tie it all back together with landscaping, lighting, etc. So in looking at the plans provided by the applicant, this is a kind of major reconfiguration of the high school complex. For site development plan 25008, there is an addition to the high school for the Performing Arts Center, a large parking lot that will be constructed around the Performing Arts Center, a reconfiguration of the softball field locations, in addition to the tennis courts, a relocation for practice fields, as well as reconfiguring the site access here to the north to provide a new full access drive connection to Franklin Street. When looking at final development plan 25004, this includes the proposed field house complex, a small 34 space parking lot for the field house and adjacent sports facilities, a new dry detention basin, a new varsity baseball field, and practice fields. So that's kind of the separation visually between what I'm going to talk about this evening. When looking at this project as a whole, this project requires a total of 219 parking stalls to be added. That is just for the Fieldhouse addition and the Performing Arts Center addition. The applicant has noted that with this reconfiguration of the parking lots and new parking being added, they are netting 236 new spaces. All of the areas in orange account for over 350 spaces within those zones. That does not include any parking that's existing on the rest of the site, just what's being reconfigured to handle the proposed additions. For those that recall, when the football stadium expansion was planned, there was a deficit in the amount of surface parking, paved surface parking that was provided. However, in the preliminary zoning plan that was approved by Village Council in the 90s, that overflow parking of about 600 spaces could take place within the grassy areas, and only half had to be on paved surface. With this project, that 600 space deficit is actually being reduced, and so there is much less overflow parking, I want to call it, that needs to be planned for. Previously, that was this entire area to the west of the football stadium. With the reconfiguration, the applicant is moving it to this new practice football field in this general location, noting that it can fit the overflow deficit of about 300 and so automobiles. When looking at site development plan 25008 specifically, again, these are the components that are going to be discussed. The Canal Winchester Performing Arts Center addition is going on the northwest side of the northern wing of the building. The applicant has provided some visuals here for what that Performing Arts Center looks like. That is everything from this entire viewport of the screen here, as well as everything in this kind of turn of the building until you get to this is part of the existing facility here. The Performing Arts Center components were briefly discussed during the last application, but this project for the school is not adding any capacity to the current enrollment. It is just providing more programming for the existing capacity in the schools. So this is not a project that will be adding any more classrooms for additional students. Another angle provided by the applicant from Washington Street here, you can see the scale of the Performing Arts Center due to the massing of it and the need for a flat roof, or else the building would be taller. The applicant is proposing an alternative building material, which is a aluminum panel system that will be offset from the rest of the first floor components to accent the facility. This viewpoint here is to the north. This is the general entry that the public will experience. There's, if I kind of flip back through, that is this drive-through loop, that view. This view here is approximately this side from the parking lot. When looking at these two views, this is facing the kind of middle of the school building. This is where they have their generators, their trash, other kind of on-site components. This is the portion of the building that's visible above the existing high school that would be visible from Washington Street. So kind of laying some perspectives here for you. With this site development plan 25008, they're also relocating the softball fields. Those fields are going to be located adjacent to the parking lot expansion. This softball fields is going to feature a new press box and new dugouts. Elevation view has been provided by the applicant. Off to the side here, you can see that practice football field. Again, this is where the overflow parking will be for the football stadium capacity needs. When looking at final development plan 25004, again, we're going to the field house, the smaller parking lot, and varsity baseball field with the dry basin. The field house elevation drawings here from the applicant shows it's going to be located just south of the existing weight room. This field house component is going to be visually similar to the existing weight room building from its design, materials, and construction. There is a meeting room that faces interior to the football stadium. These plans from the applicant show it's going to have a small patio that faces the inside of the football stadium. When looking at the building design itself, this is to house a 50-yard turf indoor field for practice purposes. This will relocate the varsity locker rooms from their current building to this facility. There will also be this meeting room that they will meet in before the game starts, halftime, etc. One component to this building that is a little hard to see on the screen, but the north side of the building that faces the existing weight room will have a large clear polymer material to let natural light into the building. And then this elevation doesn't show up very well on the roof line, but it looks like there are some skylights that are also proposed in the building as well, that primarily won't be visible from the pedestrian view. The applicant is showing to park new 34-space parking lot adjacent to the field house. 34 spaces is the minimum that are required for our parking standards for that field house component. So the applicant worked with staff to incorporate this parking adjacent to the field house rather than just growing in the overall lot expansion they're doing behind the building. With this final development plan application, they are also relocating the varsity baseball field. This will be on the corner of Connor and Dietz. The varsity baseball field will have a new press box and new dugouts. These facilities have been provided with their materials for Planning and Zoning Commission's review. They've provided this cut sheet here showing all the different building materials. This is the aluminum wall panel system that I noted for the Performing Arts Center. This graphic here shows some kind of push and pull articulation to it, but I do not believe that is what the applicant is proposing. It's just a visual representation for that company. When looking at some of the other components here, if you have any questions, I'm trying to make this as concise and not drag on as long as possible, but if you have questions about building materials, placements, feel free to ask. For the landscape plan, I try to keep this kind of short and sweet for you guys. They're required to plant 141 trees with the project. That includes all building and parking additions and any tree removal. The landscape plan shows 141 trees are to be planted with this project. I did just want to highlight that there are tree groupings that are specific to screen some of the residential lots from the varsity baseball field, the field house from Dietz Drive, as well as the softball field from the adjoining neighbors. This project is not proposing any lighting for the baseball or softball fields. The lighting is composed around the two parking areas. This is the baseball field here in that little parking lot, the larger parking lot addition, and then two lights here for the tennis courts. Didn't highlight it very well, but they're proposing to add 2 more tennis courts to that complex on the north side of the site. Pending any questions from the Planning and Zoning Commission, staff is recommending both Site Development Plan 25008 and Final Development Plan 25004 be approved as presented.
Questions for staff?
If you flip back to the,
Tell me when to stop.
let's go back to the Performing Arts Center. You showed a picture that, kind of like, actually, go forward one more. Right, so if you can kind of zoom in the upper right, you notice how the dome section at the middle of has the black roof with the windows, and you notice this, so it almost feels like if we were to take some of that Performing Arts and like the last few layers, make it black, it may look like it's a roof versus just this thing that's sticking up like a pole. I don't know if that's a staff discussion, I don't know if you've had that or not, if it's we can discuss with the candidate, but if we use, as you flip through there, to just email on the bottom and see how it tends to stick out because it doesn't have any kind of black capping on it like every other piece of the structure.
Yeah, staff did have those conversations with the architect on how to kind of make this addition have a little more disappearance than what is I mean, it's a big portion of the building.
Yeah.
The previous design, just for reference, had these panels in a vertical kind of randomized orientation with different colors of silver, different scale and widths to them. There was a black cap along the roof line. it just visually looked very different than the rest of the school facility. So staff had asked the applicant to kind of blend this to some of the existing elements. So that's where the paneling kind of got rotated, stacked in like a brick stack pattern. The applicant does note that they're going to try to color match this panel to the ephes on that rotunda and other ephes elements in the building. If they can't find a stock material from this brand, they noted they would get it custom color matched, so that way it was seamless across. One of the renditions had that with this, if you look here, this band across the roof is actually this metal coping for the rubber roof. They had it as it's black before, and visually from the renderings, it felt like you could see the building more because it put a definition line on it. So we actually had the applicant reverse it and make them all color matched, so it hopefully kind of blends into the background. We did ask the applicant to look at putting faux windows in, different architectural elements to kind of differentiate it. And it seemed like after all of our attempts back and forth, the easiest thing in staff's opinion was to make it as bland as possible so it kind of disappears in the background, if that makes sense. Planning and Zoning Commission have their own different opinion on it. That's totally fine, but that's kind of the direction we took.
Can you flip back to that?
Absolutely. Thank you. Did you like this rendering here, Mr. Deeds?
This was one that just happened to caught my attention as you look at how some of the tan, but it always capped with the black. And even though they are relatively tall, the black kind of mutes it. Otherwise, this, like I said, it just looks like it's this tan tower that's sticking up. But it's, I don't know if they.
So I have a question, similar to, so the building materials for the field house. So that's an extension onto the current structure, correct?
No. So the field house is its own building. This block right here is the current weight room. So this will be a
And
new
they're
building.
asking for the building materials to remain similar to what's on there now?
Yeah, you can see
Correct.
that in this kind of upper right image. It's, you know, there is a separation, but it's essentially matching the same materials all the way down.
And so I'm struggling with, so I think the current weight room building material looks extremely out of place and cheap for the rest of the brick and the aesthetics of the entire campus. And we're gonna have, and my question was, so the building materials, the brick and the roofing materials for the baseball and softball press boxes and dugouts, I think these match what's on the current school building today, correct?
The brick
The
on the
BR1?
Yeah, the brick on the sports complex is a little bit different than the brick on the building. Is this a CMU modular brick for the dugouts? BR1 here?
That one specifically, no. The BR1 is for the field brick for the rest of the building. BR2 is kind of the accent brick that's slightly darker that creates the horizontal banding.
Okay, so this is not a CMU brick. This is a thin brick or a true brick?
The press boxes and the dugouts will be CMU brick, but the Performing Arts Center will be real brick.
Yeah, so the dugouts and press box are the larger 4x16 concrete masonry brick.
So remind me on the R3 residential district, since that's the way this is zoned. So from a building materials standpoint, what restrictions, if any, are there for a project like this where it seems like we're gonna have 4 or 5 different types of building material for one campus?
So the site development plan component here is R3. There are no architectural standards in that district for building materials specifically. The final development plan portion, the southern half, is in a plan district. So that plan district component is just determined during final development plan submittal with the Planning and Zoning Commission. The preliminary set of drawings did not have any of these other buildings incorporated into it. That final development plan was solely focused on the construction of the football stadium. So everything that's come in after the fact from a structure standpoint has been an amendment essentially to the final development plan. So this is an amendment to FDP 25004 is amending the previous to allow an additional structure, so to speak.
So when was the previous one approved?
Last one.
When the weight room,
Bleachers.
well, the bleacher expansion.
So that's, again, that's another question I had probably for the school district, but, so we approved the bleachers at least a year and a half, 2 years ago? So does that approval still exist, and is that still part of this overall project?
So staff had asked the applicant to include the bleacher expansion in their drawings, so it is noted in all their plans. In talking with Mike Birch of the schools, they plan on doing the bleacher expansion the same time as the rest of this project from a construction timeline perspective.
And do we know when that timeline is?
I think the applicant can answer when the timeline from specifics are, but my brief conversation is going to be next summer.
Okay, bear with us 1 second. Okay, so has there been any discussion with the district or with the representatives of the applicant about restricting parking on Connor and Dietz for, any sort of sports programming, especially, if you have a varsity baseball field there that butts up to a residential area, residential streets, residential pedestrian traffic, proper netting, that's extremely close to public right-of-ways, public thoroughfares, just from a risk perspective. What conversations has the city had with the school on this applicant, as it pertains to the baseball field and to parking?
So Connor and Dietz allow for on-street parking. They're sized appropriately for on-street parking any time of the day, not just for school functions.
But
what we are
we
gonna-
block the parking now for football games on Dietz. The city puts out signs because it's a safety issue, and that's my point. So we've got 236, I think you said, Andrew, net new spaces,
Correct.
and none of them are within great walking distance to the baseball field. And the reason I bring this up is because the middle school was poorly planned from a programming perspective when that was done. You've got baseball and softball fields out there. It's not ADA compliant. There's a walkway. There's no parking. And I'm afraid with this plan, we're looking at the same type of thing for the baseball complex. And if the city's going to restrict parking because it becomes a safety issue down there, I get that the roads are wide enough and you can park there and it's legal. But right now, the city is prohibiting that when there's large crowds and games. And that's a big concern. Where that varsity baseball field is proposed, in my opinion, that's a huge concern for the program. I mean, where are people going to park? They're not going to park over here and walk all the way out there. They're going to want to park on the street, school buses. And, I just don't think that this part of the final development plan has been, this is the responsible part of planning and why, why I'm so passionate about it. Is this, just because it fits and fits the code, is this the right thing to do? So parking, let's just pick on the baseball field. Is there anything required in that planned district from a parking perspective as it relates, is there anything different from having the football field where it is to the baseball field in terms of proximity of a parking? What ADA type things come into play?
So currently, this area for the varsity baseball is the varsity softball, I believe.
It's JV softball that's not currently being used.
The site does have some existing ADA improvements to the fields that were done a few years ago from the school complex. With this project, the applicant is showing extending the sidewalk system with a new path all the way along the kind of perimeter of the new parking lot that will lead all the way from Dietz to Washington Street. There currently is a path system that will lead you to Franklin Street in this direction, so it's completing the loop in this direction. One of the questions you asked about the the baseball component, and I don't have a really good slide here that shows it, but this area directly around the pitcher's mound and I think almost to first and third base, that is a 30-foot tall fence that will be installed. The rest of the complex, the applicant is noting that's going to be a 6-foot tall fence around the area. That was a question we had internally in staff was, are those kind of locations and directions appropriate for foul ball plays and things of that nature? That was something we determined we could look at during technical review, during civil engineering, to see if that is kind of appropriately scaled and placed. I do know one of the things that we have asked and have not received a response yet, but we are going to address it during technical review was the portable restroom placements. Currently there's one right behind a fence on Dietz that is used for this existing softball field. We had asked where the portable restrooms are going to be for these new field locations. They were not provided on this plan set, but we want to be aware of those from a planning perspective for maintenance, access, location. So that's something we planned on doing during our civil review after Planning and Zoning Commission's review. I've never been to a high school football game or baseball game, so I did not know we blocked the parking. But I do know we talked about currently buses park on Connor for those away games. So that was a question that got brought up is, is that the most optimal place for the visitor bus parking to still be located? So some of those questions I would say are questions we've had in-house, just trying to find the appropriate timeline to get those addressed was something we were working on as well.
So you mentioned the restrooms, and that was one of the questions I had. So has staff had any conversations with the applicant regarding permanent restrooms near that facility?
Near the baseball? No.
Or any of them, any of the athletic,
There'll be new restrooms added with the
Fieldhouse.
field house building.
And will those
So
be,
that
will those be accessible during
Yes.
other sports programming?
I don't know. They'll be accessible during events which take place inside the stadium.
Yeah.
I don't know about opening for other events.
And do we know so the practice football field that's proposed near the proposed softball complex, did I hear you right that will serve as the
Overflow parking.
overflow parking, so that will not be turf, that will be open to park in if they need it?
That's correct.
So that'll be a natural, just grass?
I would assume so if it's going to be the overflow parking.
Yes.
I'm seeing 3 proposed practice fields, correct?
It's this one that's labeled
That's the
overflow
parking overflow.
for events, yes. Yeah, so the applicant is going to put a depression in one of those curbs to allow for an access drive, so to speak, to get down to it. So that's something we've talked about during the civil review on how that's going to be looked and graded. I've talked with Mike Birch at the schools. He also wanted to see kind of how that was going to take place because he said some significant grade change within that area. So I'm just, he's aware of it. He knew that that overflow parking was necessary with previous approvals and with his experience at the schools, so he thought that location was appropriate as well.
Do we know the distance to the, well, let's see, that would be, I guess, to the south of the proposed practice field, to the left there. So,
In the shot put kind of javelin area, I do not have that unless the architect or the civil has that scaled in these drawings.
and this is just a comment for discussion, so I was wondering, when I reviewed this, can you reconfigure some of what's happening there with either parking or the practice field so that, is there an opportunity to have more permanent parking in that shot put area space there to help from a proximity standpoint for football overflow parking, any programming that goes on there? Obviously, it would serve the softball complex. There's plenty of parking, it appears to be there, in the actual school building and the Performing Arts Center. And then it would allow more permanent type availability for anything that happens within the baseball complex.
If you take a look at sheet C 2.1 in your printed packet, there is parking kind of in that area you were talking about that is being removed with this project. So there are a dozen or so spaces that are going to be removed to facilitate the through access drive, the north-south access drive. It's not highlighted very well in my presentation, but with this new access drive, working with the applicants and the schools, this right here is being reconfigured for more traffic output, and so is this kind of intersection here. When I was talking with Mike Rich, the idea was that this full access drive was going to be open and not gated. That way, school traffic can disperse these more directions, school traffic can disperse. And so the only other item we have kind of internally, and Mike had as well, was trying to get this kink out of this access drive to make it a little more apparent which direction you're supposed to go. But the parking reconfiguration has actually removed parking from this area to handle, I believe, anything associated with this. Because it was pointing, I believe, the other direction, but the basin sizing requirements resulted in it being rotated. So I don't think from a what's here perspective, I don't know if the applicant has looked at reconfiguring more parking or has just looked at consolidating it to be here, and then staff requested this be increased on that side.
Okay. And to your knowledge, Mr. Moore, will that access drive that runs all the way from Franklin Street to basically the football stadium, will that be two-way traffic, and will that be maintained by, that'll be maintained by the school district?
That's correct. Yeah, the fire department has requested that the access drive up to this point be full 26 feet in width, and then this addition of it could taper down to a 24-foot width access drive, but that's full two-way traffic.
Okay. What other questions for staff? Any other questions for staff?
Will they still have their fuel center back there?
So the fuel center is being relocated with this project. It's currently in the middle of this Performing Arts Center parking lot.
Okay.
See this box over here by Franklin Street? That is where it will be relocated. That location fits the turning radius for school buses and also the city equipment, the
I was
trailers.
gonna say, the city uses that site as well.
So being someone that lives off Crossett, which is by the baseball field, I'm glad you said something, because when there's football games, they tend to even come and park down across the street. As a matter of fact, they'll even go and park down the service road to the street garage. So I think Joe brings up a good point with the varsity, because where it is situated. If it were to be flipped, it's closer to the parking, then they'll use this parking instead of all the other parking. I know that causes some rearrangement, but I'd like to at least, I think it should be considered.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the size of the crowd is a big factor on where people park and how
Yep.
we
Yep.
get traffic in and out of there. You know, baseball obviously doesn't draw normally as big of a crowd as you'd see at football games, so.
Right.
We did look at the location, and the home plate's like over 100 feet from any public right of way, in any direction, so a 30-foot tall fence and 100 feet of distance. I'm not really that concerned about foul balls, not to say there won't ever be one, but it's very unlikely that it's gonna be a frequent occurrence.
Yeah, and the school's been really good about letting other programs use their facilities. So, you know, I think there'll be activity there, not just on game, you know, there'll be constant activity, you know, within the season for these different complexes, would be my suspicion.
Yeah, the initial plan just had parallel parking down the entire drive near the field house, and we'd asked them to incorporate a parking lot in that area because you do have so much more use, especially when you get the younger kids that are gonna wanna use that indoor facility, the parent pickup, things like that. You know, as someone who goes to a lot of youth sporting stuff, it's always, you know, that's the time when you have those overlaps in scheduling where one group's still there and you got the next group dropping off, and, you know, how do you manage that traffic during that time period?
Is the proposed dry basin fenced?
No.
Okay.
Now, if you go to sheet,
It's kind of there now, it's just,
Just,
this is gonna be a new dry basin on sheet C 4. On C 5.0, you can see the limits of the basin here, and the proximity to the baseball and the parking lot. They are proposing this to be a dry basin, where the bottom to top is about a 4 to 5 foot elevation change.
But it'd be very limited slopes into it, so it'd be easy for someone to traverse with a mower and to walk up and down. We have certain standards, so we require a wet basin in our stormwater management regulations. We will allow dry basins if they're designed in a certain way, have under drains, sometimes a concrete channel across the middle to ensure that it can be completely mowed and maintained.
so obviously somebody in that small parking space by the field house could walk through the field over to the baseball diamond.
Yes.
Okay.
You could, there's also a path that leads directly to it.
Yeah, if you walk, there's a sidewalk around
Right.
it as well. But yes, you'd be able to walk those slopes.
Then, so I remember when we did the most recent addition to the high school a few years back, we were flexible, and I'm not quite sure that the current tree code was adopted at that time. Do they intend to replace all these trees through this project before completion?
That is what the application shows, that's correct.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions for staff?
well, so I guess, was there discussion, can the ball diamond, instead of being at the corner of Dietz and Connor, it be flipped to be down here, so the backstop would be more closer to the existing parking, which would be more natural?
That would be a question for the applicant. The schools and the applicant designed all the reconfiguration of the sports fields.
Yeah, the dry basin would have to probably adjust a little bit, and the practice field may move slightly, but.
Yeah, the baseball field for me is what I'm struggling with the project. It's just it's just kind of out there on its own.
Yeah, well, when they do, the kids out there practice flag football at the moment, and when there's practice at 6 o'clock,
Yeah,
you drive very slow down the street, which I don't have a problem with that. But when they park on both sides of the street, it is pretty narrow.
All right, so I know the applicant's patiently waiting and probably taking some notes, but are there any other questions specifically for staff at this point? Okay, so I'll let you guys react to the myriad of questions or discussion we've had, and then certainly we may have a couple additional questions.
Sure. Regarding the baseball field orientation, I think that is the preferred orientation, but we could certainly look at shifting that. It would, shift the practice field in that area as well as probably the detention basin. So I guess, I think at this point, it's preferred to keep that orientation. Not that that's a dead set requirement. If I understood the commission correctly, they wanted it flipped. In other words, home base towards the northeast instead of currently southwest.
Right, so,
Yeah.
the backstop would be more like here.
Yep.
In that way.
Understood.
Because then you have all this parking that's right there, which would be a natural traffic flow versus them parking everywhere else.
Yep.
And it fits what is proposed for the softball complex as well. And I get, those are smaller fields, it's a different type of area in the parcel, but to me, it makes planning sense to do it that way. Then people aren't walking so far, and you've got, people that might be disabled or can't, appropriately track down a sidewalk or through a dry basin. And parking and programming within this site has always been a challenge, and it's only going to get worse with the expansion of everything here. So I get there's a small amount of area that we have to deal with, but are we utilizing it most efficiently and effectively for what we're trying to? Because I think all of this is great. Obviously, a member of the community. I have kids that will participate on these complexes. I'm just thinking if there's a couple things that we can tweak here and clarify it, I would be more comfortable.
Good points.
I know there are sometimes issues with the direction of home plate versus the
Right.
sun
Right.
Right. That's,
going down, so that,
Yep, I've thought about that.
yeah. That's what I meant by the current orientation is preferred. It's not a steadfast rule.
Then, yeah, I don't know what it would take to take the dry basin, so maybe even flip it just down to that corner next to those.
I would envision that maybe the basin gets elongated along the south end
Right.
as we move the baseball field to the northeast.
So is the requirement for the dry basin in that particular area on the screen, is that because of the proposed grade changes for the athletic field, the baseball field currently?
So if you look at their utility planning, plan sheets, the dry basin is picking everything up from the practice band field, the new 347 space parking lot, new softball fields, new overflow parking area, varsity baseball, and the 34 space parking lot is collecting all that stormwater drainage into that dry basin location.
Okay.
So that is the lowest point of the site, closest to the outlet, which is approximately in this corner of the basin. So this whole area of the site is being proposed to lead through this basin here. One of our questions internally was, it looks like the current configuration of the stormwater drainage is actually kind of where my cursor is going here up. That all currently drains to this basin. So at a staff level, at this moment, we're unsure why they're flipping it to go to the new basin rather than keeping its current orientation. But again, that's a question we had for our civil engineering review, which would take place at a later date. Those decisions would affect the size of the basin less than the placement.
So just curious for the practice field over here, where is the parking they would expect for the,
I would assume it'd be within this larger 347 spaces zone. This block right here is the current maintenance garage building. That's the one they just completed 3-4 years ago.
is it curbed,
The roadway?
the drive curbed, it's just
No.
gonna be flat, right? So.
Not
they're
to
gonna
my
park-
knowledge, at
They'll
least.
park along the drive and go practice.
So
So,
I guess I'm still confused. Football, band, what's the third one? Why do we need 3 practice fields?
It's actually gonna be 4.
Or
This
4?
is
Yeah, 4
temporary.
practice fields.
So,
There's
soccer,
Soccer.
always, yeah,
There's always
there's always,
some.
Okay.
Yeah. community programming, all those sorts of things
yeah,
would
youth
tie in.
sports, there's always someone out there.
Yeah, and again, this is why I was a little bit passionate around, discussing this with the administration, because there's programming things that go on each campus. At the middle school, there's soccer fields that the community uses over there, and they rope off on Parkview Drive because they don't want them killing the grass. And so you've got to park across and walk, and those are things, and those are just grass soccer fields. But for this type of development plan, these are brick and mortar press boxes and facilities that are going in for baseball and softball. What are we utilizing? Is the layout as efficient as it could be? And how does it impact the flow of traffic all around the site from a public standpoint? And, I do like that the proposed access drive all the way up to Franklin Street gives another outlet or incoming for programming. But the things that concern me are the continued stress that we put on Dietz and Connor in that corner in a residential area, where we're already prohibiting parking for some events on that campus. And to me, that's a big concern. It's only going to get worse.
I think a lot of that's because they want to park the school buses by the end, right, by the end of the end entrance of the football field. So I guess the question is, when the baseball games, where are they going to park the buses?
So for the applicant, I had a couple other questions for the applicant. So what's the discussion been with the district on the building materials for the proposed field house? Is it to simply match the weight room that's already there?
That's correct. To not only that, I suppose to still keep the overall campus aesthetic the same and not have this new field house kind of stick out.
So would we refurbish the current weight room, the current structure that's there to match?
There are some renovation scope with the weight room. Some of it is refreshing the brick base and then expanding the weight room programming. But yes, that's about the extent of it.
Okay. All right, so my last question for you all would be the timeline. And again, I'm going to reiterate, there's 4 of us here present this evening. I do think there's some additional questions that, we would like to have clarified or answered to see, in terms of layout before we vote. But from a timeline perspective, if this gets punted to next month, is that a critical delay of 30 days for what you all are trying to accomplish with the district? And I heard somebody say next summer. So I'm not sure, Mr. Moore, if we approve, let's say this gets approved this evening and they go through technical review and engineering, when's the earliest, if they had contractors and those sorts of things lined up, that they could start? From a timing perspective, is that like a 30, 60-day time, or does it just depend?
Next step after Planning and Zoning Commission's review would be civil engineering review and building permits. In a very perfect world, the fastest we could do that would probably be 30 days, and they could, start construction in 32 days, but the reality of it is it usually takes a little longer than that.
Okay, so my question to the applicant would be, what is your timeline to start this project, considering this is a very active site almost year-round?
My understanding from the procurement and construction schedule from the Summit construction team, there's an early site package and there's an actual building package. The early site composes a lot of the site demo, utility setup and whatnot, and they would like to get started Q1 next year. So that's the I think the worry here as far as punting items down the road. The building components is a little bit further down the year after school wraps up.
What about sports facilities and all those other things?
I believe they're aiming for it to be open for 2027 spring sports. If I have that right.
What temporary plans are there? I mean, if you're moving a baseball field and softball fields, where are they playing in the meantime?
I believe they are good. They were secured temporary fields for softball, and I believe baseball, they should be able to play in it until their season wraps up, and then they start demo and construction, and then be able to get back in the following season. Otherwise, the other temporary item and temporary construction worth mentioning is a temporary parking lot once they start doing work on the actual Performing Arts Center parking lot.
And so I've talked to a couple members from the school district, and there seems to be a lot of questions from them as well. But can you just educate me on the demolition so phase 1, so that would be for utilities, that would probably be for parking, setting the stage for construction and grade changes for the athletic facilities, and where on the site would that take place?
The demo would, yeah, you kind of named there'd be some utilities that would need to be removed, but it's mostly going to take place where that Performing Arts Center is going to go. That's really the only area where we're demoing outside of the sports fields, anything really substantial. We're just, changing that parking lot and putting a new building down there. Outside of that, not too much demo going on throughout the property. Like we pointed out earlier, that additional parking lot kind of in between the new shot put and that new practice field will be removed, but not a huge area.
So Q1 is January, February, depending on weather. And spring sports and school ball start late February and conclude early to mid-May. So if I'm a baseball or a softball coach or athletic director, my question to you would be, do those folks have their facilities this year based on where they currently are? So the baseball field's way out here, I think that's fine. Softball field's here and here. So let's just say from mid-March to mid-May, are those facilities available?
Yes, currently that is the intent, is for them to finish up their season for
2026?
2026. So really, the Q1 would involve utility work on basically the red boxes that you're seeing in that map right now. Utility work for the new field house and new utility work for the new Performing Arts Center. And very likely a good amount of setup work and excavation needed for the new what do you call it? Sorry, I'm having a brain fart. Detention basin, thank you. The dry basin.
Okay.
As well as the storm sewer to the detention basin would be one of the initial improvements.
So essentially, programming would be impacted, but programming could still happen through the remainder of this school year for those sports. Now, the bleacher, for the football stadium, the bleacher expansion, is that a timeline of the summertime, I don't know the timeline of how long that would take. I'm just thinking, what are the disruptions for the community and for the school as we invest into better facilities and to, to improve this campus and site overall? And again, I know you guys aren't the school district, which is why I wanted them here.
That, and we also can't speak too much to the actual bleacher expansion. That specific project scope is not in our scope.
Okay. Any other questions for? Yeah.
I have one question. For the baseball reorientation, is there going to be a problem if we cross over the zoning boundary?
That's the right question. Andrew?
No. No, because we are looping these together as one discussion. I don't see any issues with that. There's some overlap taking place now with shot put, with some of the practice fields. This is all one site, one complex, just because of the zoning district challenges. To avoid this would either have required one or the other being rezoned prior to this meeting, which would take in 6 months. So this is a more sensible process moving forward.
I imagine if there was a building that spanned it, it'd be a different conversation, so.
Any other comments or questions?
I just want to go back to the original one about the Performing Arts Center. Did you discuss just changing it to the same color as the brick?
I apologize, Mr. Dietz, what's the question?
Just for the Performing Arts Center, it's still, I think if you go, yeah, that one. When you go into this one, you just you see the black roof
Yes.
on all the other tans, like in that tan, it just, they look like it's just sticking out. So it just feels like if you were to, and I see what Andrew said, I don't know if maybe put the windows lower and just maybe blacken the top of it, it would just give it the appearance of a roof versus just it's jutting up into the sky by itself. Again, sometimes until you build it, you can't quite tell, but you're
We
the
can
architects.
do the next best thing and send you guys renders of exactly that. And I don't know what the approval process of something like that would be, but we're happy to do it, obviously. And we have run a few renders of different iterations on this. It's and kind of found that having it, like Andrew said, kind of sit back as best as possible was almost the best way. And then if I could add another point too on the Washington Street renderings, it's not showing any trees, which is not true to life. Obviously there are trees along there. We just kind of had it omitted for clarity of the elevations of the buildings. But you can also imagine a lot of the existing trees that you're putting there and sort of the new trees that we will be adding would also help on screening or adding some another layer of complexity to the views of either street drivers or pedestrians. But yes, to your point, Mr. Eads, I don't know how it works. I could certainly send some additional renderings to the staff here and they can forward it over. I think us as the architects and with my understanding with the school admin there, I think they'll be okay either way.
I'm not sure you're gonna get what you want, Rick, in that it's a flat roof. So
It
you're
is.
not, you don't really have a roof there, you just have an edge.
Right, but if you go down a few layers, a few feet, it gives the perception of it being a roof versus it's just, I mean, again, I'd like to see a mock-up of it, see what it looks like.
What's the thought process on not just matching the brick on the current structure?
Breaking up the facade is, it would be very important as you're looking at a 50-foot volume. A 50-foot wall of brick becomes very intimidating almost, especially to a pedestrian. That and from a practical standpoint, brick weighs more. So As you go up higher, then your weight and cost increases a good amount.
Yeah, and even with the color, it's just the massing of the building. It's trying to break it up with different, different colors, different materials.
I just think different colors would be, maybe just through, like, to your point, through where the proposed lighter tan, you're just having like some dark, maybe in the middle or at the top, just kind of going through there. I don't know the proper term, but.
A band.
Yeah, like a band.
Yeah, they use this material often with mixed colors to try to break up the
Right.
facade. So that's something we explored. We looked at different facilities that use the silver and like a gray, kind of silverish tones, and they mix a lot of those colors. One of the challenges with those is they're very reflective. And so when you get sun off them a certain way, it's very reflective, but I think that's another way they could break this up, is with just using multiple colors on that. But really, when we looked at it internally, we thought just trying to have it fade into the background of being one monotone color was the better view. And we can share some of the renderings. There's been a number of them, especially on the rear, the improvements that were made, adding the landscaping and some planter beds and some additional brick height to help break that up, helped significantly.
You can see in this rendering, Mr. Deeds and Mr. Donahue, a different perspective of the rear of the building. This is probably the most visible portion of the Performing Arts Center, because this brick is flat with the aluminum panel. This aluminum panel is stepped back 30 feet from the north. And then when you look at it from this direction, it's stepped back 100 feet, from Washington Street. So the scale of it, I'm not sure if the scale of it is very reflected in this rendering. Because this roof height here is 20 feet tall. And this roof height here is 50 feet tall. It almost looks like I'm seeing all 30 feet of it and not kind of like the sight line disappearing. So I try to take this kind of rendering with a grain of salt on terms of how much you would actually perceive, plus
Okay.
the additional landscaping. That's why we asked for those additional trees to be put in. So there was some thought on staff's end as well.
To piggyback on that, yes, there is limitations on the renderings, and the lens that you're seeing, those specific images, is of a wider nature to kind of capture the rest of the school facade. Human eye would likely have a less wide lens, or more narrower. So I think, I don't know, that would be closer to perhaps 15 to 20 millimeters, and then the human eye is somewhere around 40 to 50.
And I apologize, for the weight room and the field house, the exterior building materials, you said those will match?
Correct.
So from what's currently on the weight room today, there will be some subtle changes to match what's being, not added on, but the field house right next door. They will look similar in terms of
If you look
color
at
and
that-
building materials when it's done.
If you look at this WP2, it is a metal wall panel system that's insulated. I believe the applicant indicated it's the exact same material that's used in the weight room.
Okay.
They can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that was the intent.
Correct. It would be, if not exact, it would be very similar in nature. Of course, it'll be newer, look newer.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? All right, so
Where are we?
I don't know that, so there have been lots of recommendations from this commission, some questions, and some proposed modifications. I personally would prefer to table this 1 month so that they can come back, staff can provide some additional renderings, they can provide some additional input on our recommendation for the layout of the baseball field and the dry basin perhaps, and maybe the parking, the practice area there. I don't want to be responsible for delaying a project, but I want to make sure the project that we put our name on is done in good faith and we've put all of our effort into it. And there's 4 of us here this evening, so, you know, again, we run the risk of further delay if one of us votes no on this project. So I would ask you all if you would be okay to table 1 month to allow yourselves additional time to work with the staff and the school district on some of our recommendations. And then we can come back in November and hopefully button this up. And while they're discussing, I would say for this board, you know, one of my initial concerns coming into this evening was, you know, programming for this school year on the facility. And it sounds like, I forget, what was your name, sir?
Amadeus.
Yeah, Amadeus confirmed that the baseball and softball programming would effectively remain unaffected during phase 1 of this, for this calendar school year.
I mean, it is a large project, so
It's an extremely large project.
we only get one chance to get it.
Yeah, and it's surrounded by, you know, residential on pretty much every side, and, you know, my biggest concern was the layout of the baseball field and traffic and the potential safety hazard it could bring to the roadways there in that residential area.
Yep.
We appreciate your frankness, your consideration, your comments, and your concerns, and we would like to table the vote and give us the opportunity to present you with some of the options that you discussed here.
Thank you. It is probably worth noting, we did not anticipate 3 members being absent this evening, so our apologies.
And so just as a follow-up, as we wrap this up before we vote to table, if staff could send us the renderings, you know, so we can review those between now and next month, and, you know, maybe ask staff any questions that we have.
Yeah,
And then we'll look forward to any additional renderings or input from you all next month, and hope to have a full commission where we can take a full vote and get any updates.
Agreed.
Yeah, feel free. I'll send you the renderings that we've done so far. If you have any questions, ask. If you're talented enough, you want to mock something up, I'll be glad to forward those to the applicant to give them some consideration. I think any and all discussion is good in this project for its effect on the community, its timeline, and wanting to keep things moving as efficient as possible. So always call me if you have questions, or shoot me an email or anything.
Appreciate that. All right, so I'll need a motion to table each of these applications individually.
Okay. Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to table Site Development Plan SDP-25-008.
I'll second that. So motion made by Mr. Deeds, second by Mr. Donahue. Roll call.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Ms. Gooden?
Yes.
Mr. Cosgrove?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds, yes. All right. Mr. Chair, I'd also like to make a motion to table Final Development Plan FDP-25-004.
I'll second that as well. Roll call.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Ms. Gooden?
Yes.
Mr. Cosgrove?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds, yes.
Thank you for the discussion, and
Thank you.
appreciate it.
We'll see you next month.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time, guys.
Next application on tonight's agenda is Site Development Plan 25-009. This request is to approve a new 11,094 square foot expansion onto the Waterloo Crossing Retail Center. The subject property is zoned general commercial. consists of Phase 2 of the Waterloo Crossing Shopping Center that was approved in 2006. All surrounding properties are zoned general commercial, a part of what is known as Waterloo Crossing Shopping Plaza. The Walmart big box just located to the east. My red box on the screen is the approximate area for the expansion. Gender Roads on the west, Winchester Boulevard, West Waterloo Street is to the north. This expansion is located approximately between Planet Fitness and Las Margaritas, kind of that gap in the plaza there. This subject site did get the parking lot completed with the Bank of America project, the parking lot just to the north. The applicant has provided their parking calcs here, noting that they are required 342 spaces for the entirety of the Waterloo Crossing Plaza, and that they have 375 spaces, so they are exceeding the minimum standards for parking, so no additional parking is required to be added for this building addition. When looking at the landscape plan, the applicant is noting there to plant 11 new trees on the site. The 11 new trees are noted up on the screen, 2 in front of the building, the remainder sprinkled along the parking lot just north of the building. For utilities, this site does have existing utilities in the Waterloo Crossing retail area. The project here is showing a new dumpster enclosure behind the building, as well as retaining some of the other facilities for the adjacent tenants on Phase 1 of the Waterloo Crossing Plaza. When looking at their elevation package, the floor plan notes this is for 2 tenants. Tenant A larger 8,381 square foot space. Tenant B is a smaller 2,713 square foot tenant space. When looking at these 2 building tenant spaces being added onto the building, the front elevation for tenant A, the larger space, is this square block up on the left. Tenant B is this kind of inline retail addition on the right-hand side. The applicant has provided this package with a color rendering proposing materials for the subject building. When staff was reviewing the addition plans, noted tenant B matches the existing design for the Waterloo Crossing Retail Center. The applicant is proposing to have a metal roof over the new tenant B space, green in color. The tenant A space, the larger space to the left, staff notes does deviate from the rest of the Waterloo Crossing retail design. This space is proportionally larger than the adjacent Planet Fitness storefront, while the retail area inside of this addition is nearly half of the footprint as Planet Fitness. The proposed design has a flat roof line that extends the nominal height of the shopping center, and the design for this addition is not standardized like the rest of the plaza. Specifically noting the signage selection, the ephes area on either side of the sign is substantially different than the rest of the plaza in terms of its scale. The signage area for this addition is proportionally higher than any other sign on the plaza, as well as providing an ephes band behind it, creating a different look than the rest of the plaza as well. When looking at the original design for Phase 2 in 2006, this area here is where Planet Fitness is currently located. This area was constructed by Staples in 2011. This is what is proposed to be expanded, what the original design intent was, again what the applicant's proposing up top, just showing the kind of the difference in the scale of primarily tenant A space. When looking at, again, the Planet Fitness edition from 2011, staff does note there are some design changes that were made for when Staples constructed it. However, the original design intent for massing scale architecture is primarily consistent from the 2006 design to the 2011 edition. Additionally, staff did note that the roof line that is being proposed for tenant B is green in color, which does match the Las Margaritas roof line. To the left of Planet Fitness, that entire roof line on this portion of the building is actually gray in color. Not sure how or why, but there was a gap between the two spaces previously, so I don't know if anyone ever paid attention. But it was something staff had asked the applicant to take a look at when connecting the plaza here to have some cohesiveness to where that break takes place. Right now, the break between a big box and left and right of it is seemingly an odd spot in staff's opinion. So something else staff wanted to bring up to the Planning and Zoning Commission. So with this project, staff is concerned about the building addition. It's not of a similar design and materials and construction to match the existing structure. The commercial development standards that Canal Winchester has adopted have a direct effect on the character and livability of the community. Therefore, Canal Winchester has the responsibility to promote a desirable commercial development with a high quality to protect the municipality's character. So staff is recommending at this time that Site Development Plan 25009 be tabled for the applicant to look at revising the architecture for the proposed addition to be in scale with the existing shopping center, and to develop plans to create a unified design for the plaza with building design elements massing in color.
Questions for staff?
Did you advise the applicant of your recommendation?
Staff did, yes. Our original discussion with the applicant was to take a look at what 2006 had proposed. This obviously results in a more systematic look to the building, where this tower element is present on either side of what's currently Planet Fitness, as well as 2 or 3 other tenant spaces on phase 1. The other idea staff had asked the applicant to explore, which they noted they had, and they weren't very fond of the way it looked, was taking the plaza space for Planet Fitness here, which again is roughly twice the size of this space in terms of footprint inside of the building, and it's about 60% wider for the face of it. To take a look at mimicking this design, but from a massing standpoint, shrinking it 60% in terms of its pattern width-wise, to create similar roof lines and architectural elements. The applicant noted that idea did not work out on paper, and proceeded to submit with the original plan.
So on this screen on the far right, where it says proposed under option A, is that's currently where Las Margaritas is, correct? And we're talking about,
This is where Las Margaritas
Yeah.
is, correct?
and we're talking about what's darker just to the left, which is
Correct.
currently raw land.
Correct. Yeah, when looking at this drawing here for the original expansion, for phase 2, these tenant spaces were intended to be this depth all the way across. So when you look at kind of, what's this, line 25, that was what the original floor plan showed for the interior tenant spaces to match in line all the way across. The desire at this point is, I believe, for a larger tenant that needs more space to go in, which is altering the original 2006 design. Staff has no issues with, the sizes of the square foots of the space. That doesn't affect the visual look from the outside. However, just the proposed addition here doesn't match anything else in the rest of the plaza for tenant space A. nowhere in that Waterloo Crossing Plaza has a large expanse of flat roof. Again, the signage is out of scale. The percentage of ephes on this expansion is larger than any ephes on the rest of the plaza. It's just a lot of uncohesive design choices that are being proposed, and staff is concerned with that and how it reflects on our commercial development standards.
Can you go back to the one that shows the proposed versus, there's like a different set of tenants or, right? There's one more on the bottom than there is on the top. Because you ought to be able to draw your lines down and connect them, and they're not,
Yeah, from a scaling perspective, this is a little,
something's off.
it's a little off, because when this elevation was proposed, Casto only constructed to this line. And so Staples constructed this portion here. So this portion appears that is possibly a little wider, just given the
Because it shows like
amount of
6 equals,
storefronts.
you know, like 6 equal stalls on the proposed and only 5 in
Just a
the
larger
current.
space.
Yeah, so it's just a slightly wider space. And so part of this being brought up is, changes happen over time. Staff is not concerned with, wanting a larger tenant in there, wanting a deeper space, but it's the consistency of the planning that is missing from this building addition.
So from 2006, it had this part that has a bit of a higher elevation, right by Las Margaritas. And so if they were to stay with something like that and maybe drop below instead of going up higher, does that, or you want something, staff was thinking more of the entire design of the original?
This is a conversation staff is trying to lead Planning and Zoning Commission to see where staff is looking at the project and articulate that to the applicant.
But those similar layouts and design take place on the other side of the Waterloo Crossing Shopping Center. If you think about that facade of the building, those same tower elements were constructed on that side.
You mean when you turn the corner?
Correct. When we
Okay.
turn the corner,
So west facing,
facing west.
Yeah.
That facade has those similar stone
Yeah.
tower elements, the same height.
And if you look on this plan, it is approximately these locations. This is similar to Planet Fitness in the middle.
Yeah, it's the pet
And
store,
then
I
these
think.
bump outs are the towers. So there are 2 towers and there's a central building design that's similar to this.
so Mr. Moore or Mr. Harry, have there been any discussion with the applicant on the actual building materials? And does staff have any concerns with the proposed materials, pallets that they're proposing for this addition? Or this structure, I should say?
So when looking at building materials, staff already noted the differentiating roof color that's in between this addition and the rest of the plaza. And the applicant is noting adding a dormer to the Las Margaritas side of the building that was missing. So that's something that they proposed to add to finish this theme out. You can kind of see it better here on the top. In terms of the brick material, looking back, the Patriot brick was discontinued at one point in time when the out parcels were being developed. I did check with the Hanson manufacturer or supplier when they submitted. It looks like that Patriot brick is back, so that should match the rest of the plaza. The applicant does note here that the lights on the exterior of the building will match the rest of the plaza. I believe they noted that the stone and the ephes cap, or the ephes cap on the top, it will match the rest of the plaza design. So from a material board standpoint, the only item staff addressed any concern about was the blue for this signage area, just making it clear to the applicant that Planning and Zoning Commission has had concerns with signage with Walmart.
Yep.
Trying to have a backer be a branded color to create larger signage area. The sign on this drawing does not meet the Waterloo Crossing development text for the word tenant signage. There's a maximum letter height of, I believe, 30 inches. This is a 4-foot tall panel or 5-foot tall panel, so the example here exceeds their development text that they have set forth. So staff let them know that, but the response was this is just to show where the tenant sign should be, and any tenant going in this space would be responsible for their signage compliance. So staff's comfortable with that answer. It makes sense. It's just more of a point of letting them know before a misunderstanding happens in the future sort of scenario.
Okay. Any other questions for staff?
Yes, can you go back, Andrew, to the picture showing them from the rear? Is there any issue with access for Las Margaritas and the other tenants in terms of deliveries and so forth?
So this drawing does note there is a cutout here around tenant B to allow for this door for Las Margaritas to remain. So there will be a walkway within this area. I don't know, this is a drain that they're noting within here to drain this concrete. But this has been, the egress has been taken into account with the layout for tenant B.
But there's a dumpster location back here?
Correct, this is the dumpster location.
Okay, so there's
for the-
still access for a delivery truck? This is a food service place, so they're gonna need a lot of delivery.
I don't believe there's pavement now where these two buildings are, it's grass, so I don't know how they get food delivery currently, but
Okay.
it did not look like it was being impacted. If you look at kind of this area here, this is kind of where that dumpster's at. So this portion is not being affected by the building addition. It's really the grassy area, the polygon next to it.
Okay.
Any other questions for staff? Gentlemen, anything you wish to add? I do have a question, but I'll give you the floor first. If there's anything you want to add on to Mr. Moore's presentation or address any of the questions we've had.
Yeah, no, just I want to thank you guys for your time. I'm Jamie Hollingsworth, I'm with Casto, so represent ownership on this project. So just going back on some dates, because this project goes back a very long way. So this project really originally started with phase one back in 2005. That's when we had permits issued, construction started. Phase two then went around December of 2006, where we added the section that was between Walmart and what will eventually be Staples, now Planet Fitness. That Staples of Planet Fitness was then, the construction started in March of 2011. And so this missing tooth, as it's been referred to, has been sitting empty for, well, we're going on almost 21 years now. That's sitting empty. So just a couple other quick notes. We did, I'm not sure why the roof was gray. I don't know, but we have conceded and said that we were, willing to go and paint that the dark green to match the rest of the center. As we were doing the planning for this elevation, true to what Andrew said, we went ahead and added that dormer above Las Margaritas to continue the rhythm on down. But really, I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of background in history on the development, because it's been sitting here a very long time. So yes, when we came in 2006, we did have an initial vision that this would be more of the inline. As times have progressed, as our tenants have progressed, this is sort of leading us in this direction that we need to provide these more dedicated entrance features for these larger tenants to get them to take these bigger spaces. It's just sort of the nature of our business right now. But I did want to turn it over to our architect. This is Rob McGinnis with Ford & Associates. Ford has been involved with this project from day one, not only here, but also at Winchester Square. So Rob, I'll turn over to you to sort of address.
Thank you very much for your time. My name is Rob McGinnis with Ford Architects, 1500 West 1st Avenue, Columbus, Ohio. To reiterate what everything Jamie was just stating, and then also what Andrew presented. We did study many of the things that staff was concerned about, and really this project started off with a large national tenant that came in. It's a much deeper space than your standard 80-foot deep that we have on phase one. This is roughly 125-foot deep. With that depth, the joist bearing height is much taller on the front elevation. And so that mass, that block for what we're calling tenant A, just cannot unfortunately fit within the current design of phase one with the mansard roof. Even if we were trying to manage that, we wouldn't be able to properly screen all the rooftop units and everything behind. So that's why we went with a more flat parapet. And what we really liked about the current design, if you look at it and take a step back, when I look at the left, plan left, we have the tower and we have 5 tenants and the 2 mansard roofs. And then that is nearly perfectly mirrored onto the right. We have the tower, the 5 storefronts, and then the 2 dormers there. So to Andrew's point, where we did study having those 2 flat panels and then the pitched roof, and then maybe could we do something with that? And it was not working with what the tenant was proposing to, where they need their main entrance to be, their goals for storefront and signage. And then also when I personally take a look at this overall massing, I like to see that this piece here with the peak and the towers, this is Staples, and it is the dedicated entrance, right? And it's kind of nice having another dedicated entrance with another mass that's, hey, this is the main entrance. When you're coming up, this is the national tenant that we're getting in. So that's kind of why we deliberately did that. The original sketch that we had before we did the official, where we were just going back and forth with staff, was that band was quite a bit larger. And Andrew, if you could tab one more, that one there. So our rendering is accurate, what we're proposing, and on the overall above is what we left. So that was the original plan that the tenant preferred. And when working with staff, we came back and we're like, you know what, Andrew made some really good points. Let's chop up that large band. That large band is a little bit bigger than Planet Fitness. So now let's chop it up. And then we did 3 individual sign bands with the center one. That's the dedicated with the blue tenant signage. But then there's also more flexibility on either side. We added a little bit more architectural detailing in there as well. And it's a little bit more narrow than what the Planet Fitness is currently doing. So we thought that we tried our best to take your recommendations and kind of try and blend the two and see if we could come up with something that's a little bit satisfactory for staff and then also for you 4 here.
Yeah, the other part of that is, with those 3 separate eaves areas is, again, we're not only looking to the current tenant that is going into that space, but we're looking ahead for Second Life, in which, we can divide that up into, 3 potential tenants down the road.
I'm not picking you up, sorry.
I'm
I wasn't picking up on the mic, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, so we were thinking of that too. So not only does it reduce the sign areas, it limits the sign areas, and it also creates that division for those future potential tenants down the line, where it still reads as, these smaller openings down the line. So that was, I think a good compromise between getting rid of that long band and coming up with these smaller areas. I did also want to note that the old sign area for Staples was actually like a red tile that was up there, so it wasn't eaves. But as far as the sign height, we are the same. I mean, yes, we are higher from the ground, but the sign area is the same 6'8" dimension as the old Staples current Planet Fitness height. So they are similar in that regard. And I believe Andrew and had worked with us, and we did get the eaves area lower than the 20% requirement of the overall elevation. So we are below the zoning requirements for that. which I think is a good thing.
So you're pursuing this particular space due to the interest of a national tenant that you have that's interested in doing business here, correct?
Yes, that is I will state that it's the primary reason that we're before you, and the reason we are building this out is for that particular
And so,
national tenant.
so space B would be available for lease?
Yes, and we have actually quite a few prospective
Okay,
tenants for that.
so this reminds me of something. But did you have any conversations with staff on, so is there any, to make it flow, making this more like this? Or this more like this?
So,
That was a direction staff had provided, apologies. That was a direction staff had provided was, could a peaked roof line kind of can carry through, can the Planet Fitness space be somehow, replicated in some manner? Or could even, let me find a good drawing here. This tower design, could that be duplicated or create some sort of, entry to create this recognition for a larger tenant space? That the conversation I had with Mitchell was, how can you create a larger tenant space look, but scale it down to the building's original design intent with existing elements? So staff agrees that this space, can be different from the original design based off of market intent, but it's the execution appears to be leaning towards what a brand wants versus fitting the plaza. I guess that's the easiest way
And
to say
I
it.
look at this and I can almost tell you who the brand is, just because of the blue, and so my question would be, does your tenant, client, or, I think that blue is gonna be a tough sell within the city of Canal, Winchester, and the Waterloo Crossing development text. And I would just encourage, because I do think, so I like that we're adding what's that thing called? Not the cupola, the over Las Margaritas. And the
Dormer.
dormer. And the roofing material and color is gonna match, correct? And so now we're just kind of talking about, really just talking about this space, right? And I think for me, I do agree it can be different. But I also, the roof pitch at the front of what's now Planet Fitness is just, it's throwing the balance off to me a little bit. And so that's where I'm trying to figure out, and I know that's why you're here. And so I'm trying to figure out how we kind of figure that part out.
Is there an opportunity to break up that space between, so can you have a lower roof between the area that is Planet Fitness and then kind of narrow that tenant space, I guess?
Height-wise?
Height-wise, just have a break between them. I think that's what visually I'm struggling with, is just the massing of that space and the roof heights.
Right between the Planet Fitness and then the column. that
Yeah,
we have
is there
that
an
starts
opportunity to
ours.
go back to a lower roof section and then have your tower element again?
If you take, instead of having the middle section be higher, if it's brought down lower, it dramatically kind of decreases the height component, but still gives it a presence. It's different than the rest of it. And then it brings the sign kind of down to the same level as the Planet Fitness signage.
So, and this is a question for anybody. Was the Planet Fitness, was that front structure always that way when it was Staples? Was there the peak?
yes.
Okay, it was designed, the only thing they changed is there was a red I think it was a red backer behind the Planet Fitness. It's, I want to say it's like a tile.
It was a tile.
It's a
It was
tile.
for Staples.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when Staples presented the building addition that's on the screen for Planning and Zoning Commission's review, Staples requested a sign variance with their submittal, noting they wanted a sign that exceeded the Waterloo Crossing development text, and that was granted with the Staples site development plan. The route that's being taken this evening is to install a sign band that exceeds, that will require a variance, essentially. Because putting a sign that is maximum size and scale with a 30-inch text height, would you say that was a 6-foot tall panel?
Yeah, the 6 foot 8, yeah. it
You'd
matches
have,
the
you know,
Staples.
a tiny sign floating in the middle unless it's double stacked. So again, those are just some of staff's concerns, is that's not being addressed. It's nothing I think Planning and Zoning Commission needs to worry about with this application necessarily, but it's something to consider is setting up the request for a variance in the future for signage.
When they file for the final development plan.
But they don't have to file, that would just be when the tenant wants to move in and they file their sign permit with me, I'll tell them their sign permit needs a variance, because I've already talked to the tenant and they've already tried to apply for a sign variance prior to these guys applying for the building. And I explained to them kindly that was the incorrect order, considering the building doesn't exist.
Okay. And so my last question, so the current, I believe you called it Maxwell brick? Maxwell?
I believe it's a Hanson Patriot. It's,
Oh, Patriot.
if you look at their,
So that is available to match, and would the applicant be okay using that material if it's available to?
that's what's noted in this sheet right here.
Yeah, and I thought the materials were similar to what's already on the center, so it,
Hanson Patriot was the original brick, but then it got discontinued in 2017.
okay.
So the fact that it's back is totally news to me, because from my knowledge, Casto has required all the other out parcels to use a Glengarry Ravenna brick, which is close, but doesn't have these, what we call them, like eyeliner lines that the Ravenna does. So to my knowledge, this is the exact same brick that's on phase 1 and phase 2. I think you'd be able to confirm that.
That's what we're proposing, and,
Okay.
you know, who knows what would happen 6 months from now, but we work very closely with local brick reps, and that's the goal with the split face, cast stone, the water table, all the brick is going to match. Not only the portion that completes the 5 bays, but then also the national tenant mass, whatever that ends up being.
Okay. Any other questions, comments, concerns? So, no. So staff is recommending this to be tabled. Do you feel that allows you additional time to clear up any, so I guess I'll just say where I stand for this particular application, I do, from our discussion this evening, I do appreciate the dormer being added and the brick color, the type of brick, as well as the roof material and color matching what's currently there today. I don't know that I have a super strong opinion on kind of the infill and everything that's going on the top elevation there. But I do see staff's concern with just kind of the overall layout. But I do think when it's constructed and you've got the tower on each end, it will kind of come together, I think, visually. I know this is for another time. I'm really struggling with the blue backfill, but that, I know we're not talking about that tonight.
I would just want to note real quickly, nowhere in the application states the roof line will match, nowhere in the application states either side of the metal roofing will be color matched to the other. I know that was a comment, I think you said, but it's not in the contents of
Yeah, okay.
the submittal, so just be aware of
Okay.
that, if there's any motion being made.
Yeah, I think, Andrew, we did commit to that, and I think one of our response letters that we provided back to you, that we are committed to doing that.
I know the letter from Mitchell said you would evaluate it, but that's not in the packet because that wasn't part of your submittal. So just, again, for clarity, one's
Well, is-
more clear than the other, I guess.
Is one a condition of approval, or?
Well, that's
one
kind of
a-
why I just wanted to let the chair know that you mentioned it, but it's not in their paperwork this evening.
Yes, so if we do make a motion and decide to put conditions for the roofing materials and colors to match as well as the brick, that's something you guys would be good with, assuming the brick manufacturer still manufactures that type of material. And if not, then staff could work with the applicant. Is that correct, Mr. Moore, on?
I'd be okay with looking at brick colors. That would be fine.
Okay,
I mean, ideally, our goal is to get it as close to existing as humanly possible.
sure, okay.
And I'm a little unclear if we're going to add any conditions. Do we want more gray or more green?
I believe there's more green.
Green, you want it to match the phase one that goes,
So there's more green the rest of the area?
There's a lot more.
it goes all the way down to
Okay,
phase
that,
one.
I just wanted to be clear which way we were going, so.
It's
Yeah, for
fair.
Is that
For
the Hartford green?
Checkered.
this is all green. It's only this little area that's gray. So it's a big difference to go the other direction.
Well, that's a lot easier to fix than if that's a smaller area that's gray, so.
And if I could just make one last final point, would you mind going to the floor plan?
Yeah.
Yeah, right there would be great. One thing to note with this national tenant is the mass of this sits back, I believe, 1'4" in plan as it steps back from Staples, and then it steps back again down to phase one. It's kind of hard to see that when you look at it on elevation. So that's another thing that we try to weigh. Yeah, you can see that just at the top right up there. That light gray, that's that jog, 1'4". Steps down, and then it steps back another 1'8". So that's kind of a nice transition between what we're trying to match with phase one and then tied into the Staples or now Planet Fitness. So when I like to design elevations, if you can't get it to match exactly, I personally think it looks better to make it its own element that really reflects and respects the entire center. So when you take a step back as the whole thing, and when you look at it from the larger picture, and then let's say we added a peak and maybe another flat to try and get it to match that Staples, something just looks off because the proportions are just a little bit too wide. You know, I don't want to drop the angle because our new tenant is wider, and then the returns are a little bit, and then not only that, but in plan it also sits back a little bit. So while we studied that was kind of why we kind of quickly, I don't want to say abandoned it, but we archived that design and then went with this. Okay, let's make this mass its own thing. So that's just one final point that I'd like to make for your consideration.
Thank you. So staff's recommendation was to table, but the concerns were, and we've discussed, I think, most of these, you know, to match the existing shopping center design, you know, in terms of elements, massing, and color. So the elements, in my opinion, are the dormer, you know, the building materials, you know, we could put this, I'd be comfortable putting this as a condition of approval. The roofing materials match, both from a material and a color perspective of what's there now. And we can, I believe, can somebody confirm with me if that color is Hartford green?
It is.
And then the brick would be the Hanson modular Patriot brick that's used at the rest of the development currently, if that brick become available, and if it's not exactly that the applicant can work with staff on something that's very, very similar. And I believe both Jamie and Rob have confirmed that their intent is to make it as similar, if not the same, as the rest of the development.
So the only other thing that staff had mentioned was Planet Fitness is at a certain height signage-wise, and the new signage would be higher. So is that of significance?
So that we did as a design consideration, because if you look at where the sign panel is, we were trying to maintain the same number of bricks below it and above it,
Mhm.
so it looks centered on the elevation
Right.
rather than sort of squished down. And you had a bunch of negative space to the top, so
Right.
that's really the reason why it is where it is. It's just so it's centered.
Yeah, that's kind of why I thought if you flipped it, so dropped it down about a foot, so now all of a sudden you have the two, like the brick towers, and it sits down, then all of a sudden it starts to line it up. But that's a you decision, and if that's what staff was thinking of.
So would you prefer a vote this evening? I mean, so in my opinion, I think the only thing, and I'm not sure we're going to overcome it, is the overall layout of and I guess, does the 1 foot back from Planet Fitness, or that 1 foot 8 inch back, does that affect, the sign height and kind of what you're going after in terms of that, the design element there at the roof pitch?
So you're talking about the step back?
Yeah,
and the
so
elevation
why is the sign height slightly higher than Planet Fitness? Is it just because of the elements of, I mean, can we remove like 3 layers of brick to bring that down?
We could certainly consider that, yeah.
I mean, and I don't know what staff's, thought process was in terms of, the mass of the sign, but I think that, just kind of lining it up with Planet Fitness, since they're kind of the 2 main tenants in that particular strip, if you will. And then the elements of the differences between the roof pitch with Planet Fitness and the tenant A, you could clearly distinctly know what Planet Fitness is versus tenant A, but the signage kind of aligns, and it balances things out a little bit more.
Yeah, if I could, when we set those parapet heights, so we're at Planet Fitness, there's the cornice that's up there, and then as it steps back, whenever we have that change in plan, and 2, it's brick running into stone, so we wanted to bring that up, and it aligns with the start of the highest part of Planet Fitness before it goes up. So that top cornice now matches the height of where we kind of started our bookend. And then we want that center mass to be the predominant feature, kind of similar to what Planet Fitness is doing. And with the detailing of the cornice, that's, let's say it's 2 foot 8 inches, I don't know exactly, but it's a little bit more than 3 foot. That's kind of what then set the next height for that top band. So a lot of that is constructability, and then also visually with setting up the mass for where we push and pull the building, and then the materials. Even when you look at the side elevation, this isn't just a billboard. Like we're wrapping that cornice that comes back to the end of the mansard roof, so it really does feel like a nice solid mass with properly detailed cornices, I think.
Okay, thank you. So the recommendation from staff was to table. Would you like us to vote this evening? I think, so if they do ask for a vote, I would consider us, conditions of approval, the roofing materials, is the dormer addition in there, in this application? So that,
Yeah,
so,
everything is colored on here is being added. So dormer, it looks like a door over here. This.
go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interject. The door over there is actually existing.
Okay.
Just looks.
It just was, the line weights are just off, but that one of the door isn't there
Okay.
for Las Margaritas.
So
It goes out to their patio.
Right.
Right?
So I would recommend us, the roofing materials to match the color of Hartford green.
Yep.
And then the brick on the new addition to match the rest of the addition, which would be the Hanson Modular Patriot. And I don't know what tabling is going to do for this application other than, moving it out a month. And I don't know if there's any other further discussion that the applicant could have through our discussion tonight with staff that would significantly change anything here. But again, that's just my observation. I don't know if anybody thinks differently.
Guess I'm just looking down at Andrew. Are you aware of any other staff issues?
My recommendation to table was to look at completely redesigning tenant A. So if Planning and Zoning Commission doesn't agree with that, or if the applicant isn't entertaining that, then that is the reasoning behind my recommendation to table. I think adding a bigger tenant space makes sense, changing the design makes sense. I just think what's put on paper here looks like something that you'd find anywhere and not part of the Waterloo Crossing Plaza. That was a planned development that had internal design standards and an internal design guide for how it was to be constructed. So the modifications, in staff's opinion, exceed what was perceived as what this plaza would look like. So that's my recommendation to table, but Planning and Zoning Commission's determination.
Thank you.
Mr. Downing, may I ask what is the result, or what is our next step if we ask for a vote and it goes not our way?
So then you would appeal to city council. There would be an appeal process. Is that correct?
So you could either appeal or create substantial changes to the application and reapply. Those are kind of the two avenues.
So probably a longer process than tabling. But again, so I share staff's concern with I just haven't educated myself enough on the, and I know some of it's subjective and it's the Waterloo Crossing, the intent of that development. But I think if I'm standing in front of this structure and envisioning what it looks like with what's proposed here, I think it comes together pretty well. But I also understand staff's concern around looking very standard and vanilla for one particular tenant, the way it's laid out. So, okay.
I also want to note, we did continue the street lighting down in front, as well as the, landscape elements. So we did carry that through. I don't know that we particularly discussed that, but we wanted to go ahead and carry that theme across that whole facade. So it does match up with not only phase one, but also phase two. So that those elements are carried through as well.
Yeah, and again, I'll tell you guys the same thing. There's 4 of us here, so per city statute, 1 negative vote, the motion would not carry. And we didn't foresee a couple of commissioners not being here this evening. So unfortunately, that's out of all of our control. But I do want you to know that before we decide to either table or to vote.
we'll go for the vote.
And we have the option to table it as well, correct?
We do, yeah.
Planning and Zoning Commission have items they want the applicant to address, and you can certainly make it clear to the rest of the commission and be the one to make a motion table, but again, this is Planning and Zoning Commission's determination on if the site development plan 25009 is appropriate or not.
So I've stated, my concerns were just kind of the overall layout, the matching of the roofing and the brick. But I'm one person, and if there's any other comments from any other commissioners that you believe that we can work through and the applicant can work through with staff, that we can table.
I'm hearing that tabling is wasting all of our time, and that their national tenant and their proposal doesn't really, they've been told by staff that they might want to make changes, they didn't seem willing to make changes. So it seems to me we need to vote on what's presented with conditions.
Okay. Would you guys like us to vote?
The only,
Yeah.
the only 2 cents I would say is if staff is somewhat hesitant on this, there's only 4 of us here. Maybe having the other couple sets of ears weigh in on it might help tip it one way or the other. So I hate to delay projects myself.
All right, well, I hear what you're saying, I appreciate it. We'll take a look at a couple of additional comments. I guess we respect it and request that we table it at this time.
Okay. But good discussion, thank you. Appreciate some of the concessions that you've made, and look forward to working for the final result.
Thank you.
So we'll need a motion to table.
Well, I guess then I'll be the one to say, Mr. Chair, I make a motion to table site development plan SDP-25-009.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Deeds to table, second by Mr. Paulsgrove. Roll call.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Ms. Gooden?
Yes.
Mr. Paulsgrove?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds? Yes.
All right, so SDP 25009 has been tabled.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Does anyone need a minute or two for a break? Are we good to go right into the next one?
Does anybody need a quick break?
I actually, if it's very quick, unfortunately, I have something that's family related that I may have to attend to, so I don't want to put us under quorum.
I'll be quick. All right, the next application is application VA 25014. This is a variance application to chapter 1185.05A to exceed the maximum 25-foot access drive width. This is for a property located at 7995 Hill Road. The owner is Paul Patch LLC, and the applicant is Property Acquisition Partners LLC. The proposed site's 29.65 acres on the west side of Hill Road. It's currently zoned PID, which is Planned Industrial District. Property to the west and the south is the Meyer development. It's also zoned PID, which permits both commercial and industrial uses on it. Properties to the east are in unincorporated Violet Township. 2 of those single-family homes are zoned commercial, and 2 of them are zoned residential. And then properties to the north in unincorporated Violet Township is zoned residential as well. The proposed site plan calls for the construction of a 200,200 square foot speculative industrial building. The site is proposed to have 1 access drive on the western side of the property for both the employee and the truck access. It's currently shown at approximately 36 feet wide at the right-of-way line, and then tapering to 30 feet as it enters the site. The portion of the roadway in front of this site is located in Fairfield County. It's part of unincorporated Violet Township. So that portion of the road is controlled by the Fairfield County Engineers Office. Their access management regulations only permit this site to have one access point. And so this is driving them to have both employee and truck traffic going in and out of that site. So you can see the truck exhibit on your screen here shows the path the truck would need to take to safely get in and out of that site onto Hill Road. So that's driving the need for the width of the access drive here. Chapter 1185.05 of the zoning code, which regulates access drives, states that an access drive entrance to the street shall be a minimum of 18 feet in width, and all access drives shall not exceed 25 feet in width except at curb returns. If you'll recall in the past, there's many instances in industrial buildings around the city where we've granted a similar variance. I can think of at least 4 that we've done in recent memory here. Special circumstances exist here. Obviously, it's driving the width needed in this area because of the safe truck routing in and out of the site. The Fairfield County Access Management Plan only allowing one access point creates potential safety issues to a narrower drive there with having the vehicles going in and out of the site with truck traffic. These conditions do not result in circumstances by the applicant. The wider access drives commonly requested by other industrial users in the municipality. Again, no undue privilege here because we've granted this variance. We've set a precedent for granting it, and we will be evaluating it in our update to our zoning code as well in terms of the access drive widths. It does not create a public health, safety, or convenience concern in terms of that. It would create more of a safety concern having a more narrow drive. It would delay trucks entering the site from Hill Road. This portion of Hill Road is currently a 55-mile-per-hour speed limit, and so there's more concerns with delaying trucks getting in and out of the site than there is having a wider driveway there. So staff is recommending that variance application VA 25014 be approved as presented.
Any questions for staff?
So I guess the speed limit is 55?
We'll discuss in the next application.
Okay, we'll do that.
And we're also going to discuss the Hill Road improvements in the next application. Correct. Okay. Any questions for the applicant on the variance application? Anything you guys wish to add to staff's presentation?
Can't improve that.
All right. So this is a variance, so I'll open up for public hearing.
Seeing no public here, I move to close public hearing.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Gooden, second by Mr. Paulsgrove. Roll call.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Ms. Gooden?
Yes.
Mr. Paulsgrove?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds, yes.
All right. So we need a motion to approve variance 25-014.
I move to approve VA 25-014.
Second?
Motion made by Mr. Paulsgrove, second by Mr. Deeds. Roll call, please.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Ms. Gooden?
Yes.
Mr. Paulsgrove?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds, yes.
All right, so VA 25-014 has been approved.
All right, the next application is Final Development Plan FDP 25006. Again, same location, owner, and applicant. The request is for a final development plan for proposed 200,200 square foot industrial building on the subject property. Again, PID zoning here, which permits both industrial and commercial uses. This was zoned with ordinance 5201, which was approved on September 17th, 2001. This is part of the overall Green Gates development, which is sub-area 3, which is the PID zoning. The zoning text for that Green Gates provides the base standards for the zoning district in terms of parking, sidewalk, signage, building locations, heights, exterior materials. There's also accompanying zoning exhibits that set certain standards for landscaping. And then whatever's not addressed in that reverts back to our 2001 zoning code when it was adopted. And then on top of that is the Violet Point overlay. So it's a bit confusing in terms of all those layers of zoning, but I'll go through each one and how they apply to the standard setback. So again, here's the site plan proposed. The maximum lot coverage is 50%, so this is a 200,000 square foot building on 29.65 acres, well below the standards there. The setbacks are a 50-foot front yard, 20 feet side yards, and a 25-foot rear. This building sets right on the 50-foot front setback, and then right on the 25-foot rear setback. It's 150 feet plus on each, to the north and the south there. The maximum building height is 40 feet. The applicant is proposing the building right at 40 feet. And then it has a 3-foot parapet wall, which is excluded from our zoning because it's an architectural feature to hide rooftop mechanicals and all that. In terms of access and parking into the site, there's one access point proposed from Hill Road. This portion of the roadway I mentioned is in Fairfield County. They only permit one access point onto the road for a parcel of this size and a building of this size. There is an existing access drive in a single-family home here that's being demolished. That'll be maintained. It's an easement to serve the town station for Northeast Ohio Natural Gas, where they pull gas off the pipeline there. And so that access point will be maintained. As you can see on the drawing here, there's a proposed future access to the south. South Central Power is developing a power substation on this parcel just to the south of the building. And the proposal is to work with South Central Power to add an additional access point, a shared access point here, which would be within the city of Canal Winchester's jurisdiction. And then that traffic could be separated where the employees could come in that southern entrance and truck traffic would come in the northern entrance. As I mentioned, that portion of the roadway in Fairfield County is currently a 55-mile-per-hour section of roadway. The city has been working with Fairfield County Engineers Office to reduce that roadway speed limit. So both to the north and to the south. So if you go to the north, just beyond the screen here, you're back into the city of Canal Winchester. It's posted at 35 miles per hour. To the south is posted at 35 miles per hour. This stretch of roadway is unposted. And so, according to state law, it's a 55 mile per hour speed limit, but it's posted on both sides at 35. The Ohio Revised Code has a provision for island parcels and how speed limits can be set on island parcels, and they allow the speed limit to be reduced on an island parcel to the adjacent speed limit. So the Fairfield County engineer is working through ODOT to get ODOT's approval to reduce that section of roadway to a 35 mile per hour section of road. And so that will drive the improvements that are necessary. So that's kind of delayed the traffic study taking place. So there's the applicant is working on an MOU with the county in terms of the traffic study. But the speed limit really will drive the length of the turn lanes that'll be installed. So the applicant is anticipating a full width left turn lane and widening in front of the site to the access drive. But the speed limit will drive the length of that turn lane and the necessity potentially for a right turn lane or a decel lane into the site. It likely will not be necessary on a 35 mile per hour roadway to install the right turn lane. But the left turn lane will likely still be required based on the volumes in and out of the site. The applicant is going to continue to work with the Fairfield County Engineers Office on appropriate traffic study and appropriate improvements for Hill Road. So one of the recommendations is that any improvements recommended in the traffic study approved by the Fairfield County Engineers Office would be required to be constructed prior to final occupancy of the building. In terms of pedestrian access, the applicant is proposing an 8-foot wide pedestrian path along the entire frontage of the site. This is in accordance with the CETA trail plan. A sidewalk will need to be added from the front of the building to the proposed pedestrian path to provide ADA access. That was not included, so that's one of the staff recommendations, is that that sidewalk be extended from the front of the building or from the building entrances to the public way. The plan is proposing 201 parking spaces. That's one space required for each 1,000 square feet or fraction thereof. The violet point overlay also requires that parking be set back 25 feet from the front yard. The parking set back 50 feet in all locations here, so they're meeting that requirement. The drive aisles are required to be 15 feet from the right-of-way, which is what the applicant has proposed for that driveway that kind of wraps the front of the building here. And then there's landscaping between that and the public right-of-way there. The 2001 code has a certain number of loading docks that are required based on the size of the building. For a building of this size, it requires 12 docks. There's 42 docks proposed on the north side of this building, or up to 42 loading spaces. There's not that many docks, but there's the punch-outs that could accommodate those in the future if necessary. The loading area is required to be screened from the public right-of-way, and the applicant has proposed screening there, so to screen that area. In a total, there are 179 proposed trees on the site. This goes back to the Green Gate development text. In terms of landscaping, they need to maintain all major trees over 6 inches where possible. And so what this plan is showing you is where those trees are planned to be removed. The majority of those are around the existing single-family home that's on the site, but there are some tree removals kind of around the edges there to accommodate grading and utility extensions. And so the applicant is proposing to remove 37 trees with this plan. They'll be replacing those with 37 trees on the site. The text requires 1 inch of tree caliper be planted for each 1,000 square feet. So the applicant is proposing more than 200 caliper inches of trees planted, so they would meet that requirement. And then they're doing that by planting 58 trees with a 3.5 inch caliper, which is a larger caliper tree at planting. And then the 2001 zoning code requires 2 inches of caliper be provided for each 6 parking spaces, and the applicant's proposing 34 trees within the parking areas there. So you can see all the trees and how they're kind of dispersed throughout the site. The property line encompasses all the way over to Diley Road. And so this was set up as a preserve area with the overall Green Gate development. So the applicant is preserving all of the trees on that north kind of area of the parcel. There are some areas where there's existing barns. You've got the existing gas company easement area, and then the gas pipeline that has been cleared through that area. But they're actually adding trees within some of the areas that were pastured previously on that northern portion of the parcel. And you can see that more in detail here. A few of these trees are gonna need to move around because they're on the gas pipeline easement area, but they'll all kind of be centered around that.
That's so noted.
Call before you dig.
Yeah, definitely.
The lighting plan that the applicant has provided is required to meet the standards of 1175.02, which is the violet point overlay. It allows for parking lot poles to be a maximum height of 30 feet with a maximum intensity of 20-foot candles and an average between 1 and 3 foot candles. The proposed lighting pole heights show a range between 24 and 28 feet on a 3-foot base. So some of those poles would exceed that 30-foot maximum. They'd be 31 feet in height if they're a 28-foot pole on a 3-foot base. So the applicant will need to reduce that by 1 foot to be a maximum 27-foot pole height on a 3-foot base. The maximum foot candles are 6.6 and the average is 1.2, so those would meet the requirements. In terms of utilities to serve this site, an 8-inch public water main would be extended from the rear of Meyer on the northeast corner of the Meyer building. That would be extended across the northern portion of this site and across the gas line to potentially serve a future building on the north parcel in a future phase. And then sanitary service would be provided from a private lift station and would extend across that northern parcel as a force main and then connect to the existing sanitary sewer, which is on the Redwood site. Storm sewer is provided in 3 on-site detention basins. So you can see there's one at the south property line, which will be behind the South Central Power substation. There's one right at the rear of the building, a smaller detention basin, and then that's connected to a large detention basin that would be in kind of the area of the existing barn that's on the site to the north. And then that would outlet to the stream, Wild Violet Run, I think it's called, that's to the north there. Again, you can kind of see the grading. All of those would be wet basins. In terms of building design, the building is proposed to be constructed of a precast concrete, which is painted in a series of gray colors. The color renderings show up a little darker than what these colors actually are, but it would be a lighter gray shade would be the lightest, and then progressively getting darker with each of those. The green gate text requires that this be durable materials and a coordinated color scheme with adjacent buildings. The applicant has met those standards with what they've proposed here. The Violet Point overlay sets additional standards for architecture. This requires all elevations to be visible from the right-of-way to be broken up with design elements. So you can see on what would be the front Hill Road elevation, the applicant has included a glass storefront on the front adjacent to the parking there to help break up the facade. They've included the high bay windows across the top. It's hard to see in the rendering here, but you can kind of see the shadow line. This portion of the building steps back, and so that also creates additional variation in that front. And then there's an additional storefront system kind of adjacent to what would be a corner office on that southeast corner of the building. You have the window glass, significant portions of window glass in the center of the building, and then a much smaller potential for up to a 4-tenant building, I believe, with the way this is laid out. Signage plans have not been provided, but the applicant has proposed kind of signage areas, potential for those, and then a potential location for a monument sign, but nothing has been proposed at this time or reviewed. So staff has reviewed the plans for compliance with the approved development text and preliminary plan. Staff recommends conditional approval of FDP 25006 with the following conditions. The applicant constructs all roadway improvements on Hill Road as required by the traffic study approved by the Fairfield County engineer prior to building occupancy. A sidewalk shall be added to connect the front of the building to the path in the public right-of-way, and that the parking lot light poles be no taller than 30 feet.
And then just as a quick note, this is a recommendation to City Council. This site does require go to City Council for an ordinance to adopt the final development plan.
Thank you. Any questions for staff?
So if there's a second building, they'll still have to use the same entranceway, right? Or do they get a second one?
Yes, I mean, as it's currently designed, they would be, I believe that the county would require them to share access. And on some of the plans, it doesn't appear that any of the ones that are in here, there is a shown access point where it would be shared here across the gas line.
It's just north of the star.
As a point of correction, Lucas, the existing driveway is intended to be the point of access for that future parcel. We do have
Existing gravel drive that
Yeah.
runs back this north property line here.
We do have plans to connect them if so needed, as you've seen and pointed out.
Yeah, if you can kind of see on, I believe, this grading plan, you can kind of see what potentially could be a building footprint there.
Additionally, if the parcels would be split in a second phase, which would allow for the access for that north property.
Any other questions or comments for staff or the applicant? Anything you wish to add?
No, this is our first development in Canal, Winchester, and I would just like to publicly compliment the staff for their tenacity with us and for their professionalism, and we're excited to be a part of the Canal, Winchester community.
Thank you. So my only, this is just kind of an operational procedural thing. So the staff recommendation with the condition that they construct roadway improvements on Hill Road as required by the traffic study approved by the Fairfield County engineer. That is still in process until we figure out the speed limit in that island area, I think is how you described it.
Correct.
And so right now, we were provided with the memorandum of understanding, but if we recommend this to city council for adoption and approval, I would imagine the same condition would apply until that traffic study becomes available, and then they work with staff to address any concerns through the process.
It'd be the county. So the county would be the ones that
Okay.
would set the improvement.
Yeah, the county ultimately controls, we don't have any say in what improvements would be necessary there or what would be permitted.
Okay. But we do have say in providing final occupancy permit until that has been done.
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions or comments for staff or the applicant? Thank you. All right.
I guess just one, other than the other lot, the rest of that is designated preserve area?
Yes. So the zoning text, as set in the Green Gate text, requires that that area be preserved.
I do remember that, but who takes care of it?
These guys will.
Browning or their affiliated LLC will own that area.
Yes. Until they sell it. Okay.
All right, any other questions or comments? All right, we need a motion. And again, this would be a recommendation for adoption, for approval and adoption by city council.
Andrew, if you flip back. Says we,
To the conditions.
yes, please.
Sorry. I'm not used to running the clicker, it's a lot of responsibility.
All right, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve final development plan FDP-25-006 with the following conditions that staff has made. The applicant constructs all roadways, improvements on Hill Roads required by the traffic study and approved by Fairfield County engineer prior to building occupancy. The sidewalk to be added to connect the front of the building to the path in the public right-of-way. Yep, the wide path, yes. And the parking lot light poles be no taller than 30 feet.
I'll second that. All right, motion made by Mr. Deeds, second by Mr. Donahue. Any further discussion? All right, roll call.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Ms. Gooden?
Yes.
Mr. Bosgrove?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds, yes.
And I would note that that is a recommendation to city council for approval.
Yes.
We're making a requirement with the sidewalk.
Thank you.
The sidewalk is that where?
So may I ask the next step at city council and the timing?
This will be set for council's meeting next Monday.
Thank you.
So next Monday will be their public hearing. You'll want to be at that meeting to have the same presentation to them. They'll ask similar questions, and then they go through a 3-read process. So where the 3rd read would be on November 17th.
Thank you, Andrew.
And then after council's ordinance adoption, you can submit for civil plan review.
Yeah, that's great. Lines up with everything well. Thank you for your help. Thank you for a
Thank
late
you.
night.
Thank you for your patience for a
Mr.
long meeting.
Mr. Moore, Mr. Deeds does need to leave, so if we can do older new business in a minute or two.
Yep.
Yeah, we don't have
Any
any.
older new business?
Just wanted to give a brief update on the zoning code update, but we can discuss it after
Okay.
the meeting's over.
All right.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Motion made by Ms. Gooden, second by Mr. Paulsgrove. Roll call, please.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Ms. Gooden?
Yes.
Mr. Bosgrove?
Yes.
And Mr. Deeds, yes.
Timeout, 9:45 PM.
Thank you all.
Thanks.